Hello, and welcome back to our channel, where we explore the incredible stories of the geniuses who shaped our world, often from the shadows. Today, we delve into the life of a true titan of science, a woman whose experimental brilliance fundamentally altered our understanding of the universe, yet whose name was conspicuously absent from the highest honor in her field. This is the story of Dr. Chien-Shiung Wu, the First Lady of Physics, the Queen of Nuclear Research, and the unsung genius who proved one of physics' most fundamental laws was wrong. Her story begins not in the hallowed halls of an American university, but in the small town of Liuhe near Shanghai, China in 1912. In an era and a place where education for women was a radical idea, Chien-Shiung was born to parents who were true revolutionaries. Her father, Wu Chung-yi, was a passionate advocate for gender equality and had even opened the Ming-Day Women's Vocational Continuing School, one of the first schools in China to admit girls. He named his daughter Chien-Shiung, which means courageous hero, a name she would embody throughout her entire life. Encouraged by her father, she was a voracious reader and a brilliant student, leaving her small town at the age of 11 to attend a prestigious boarding school. She excelled, graduating at the top of her class and earning a place at the National Central University in Nanjing, one of China's top institutions. There, she first studied mathematics, but soon found her true calling in physics, inspired by figures like Marie Curie. She graduated with top honors in 1934 and, recognizing that her ambitions required a world-class doctoral program, she set her sights on the United States. In 1936, with the support of her family and a burning desire to push the boundaries of knowledge, she boarded a ship and sailed for America, intending to study at the University of Michigan. However, a visit to the University of California, Berkeley changed the course of her life. She was captivated by the vibrant research environment and the radiation laboratory, led by the future Nobel laureate Ernest O. Lawrence, the inventor of the cyclotron. Berkeley, unlike many other top universities at the time, was more welcoming to female physicists. She abandoned her plans for Michigan and enrolled at Berkeley, where her immense talent quickly became apparent. Under Lawrence's mentorship, she dove into the complex world of nuclear physics, specifically focusing on beta decay, a process where a neutron in an atom's nucleus turns into a proton emitting an electron. This would become the central theme of her career. She earned her PhD in 1940 and was widely recognized as a leading authority on the subject, yet prestigious research positions remained elusive, largely due to the pervasive sexism and anti-Asian sentiment of the era. But world events would soon demand her unique expertise. As World War II raged, the United States embarked on the top-secret Manhattan Project, a monumental effort to build the world's first atomic bomb. Wu, by then working at Columbia University, was recruited. Her role was not minor, it was absolutely critical. She worked in the Substitute Alloy Materials, or SAM labs, where her team was tasked with developing a process to enrich uranium. The bomb required a rare isotope, uranium-235, which had to be separated from the much more common uranium-238. Wu's deep knowledge of radioactivity and particle detectors was instrumental in perfecting the gaseous diffusion process used to achieve this separation on an industrial scale. Later, her problem-solving skills were called upon to solve a crisis at the Hanford site in Washington, where the first large-scale plutonium production reactor, the B reactor, had mysteriously shut down just hours after going critical. The brilliant physicist Enrico Fermi suspected a neutron-absorbing fission product was poisoning the reaction. It was Wu, using data from her previous research, who identified the culprit as xenon-135. Her work provided the crucial calculations that allowed the engineers to modify the reactor and get plutonium production back on track. She was the fixer, the one they called when the theories hit a wall of experimental reality. After the war, Wu remained at Columbia, solidifying her reputation as the world's foremost experimental physicist, particularly in the field of beta decay. And it was here, in the mid-1950s, that she would conduct the experiment that would change physics forever. At the time, physicists were baffled by something called the theta-tau puzzle. Two different particles, the theta and the tau, seemed identical in every way. Same mass, same charge, same spin, yet they decayed into a different number of smaller particles. According to a long-held principle known as the conservation of parity, this should have been impossible. Parity was a fundamental symmetry, a law of nature believed to be unbreakable. It essentially stated that the universe was ambidextrous, that the mirror image of any physical interaction should also be a possible interaction. A process and its reflection should behave identically. If parity was conserved, theta and tau had to be two different particles. But if they were the same particle, then parity had to be violated. In 1956, two brilliant young theoretical physicists, Cheng-Dao Li, a colleague of Wu's at Columbia, and Chien-Shiung Yang from the Institute for Advanced Study, took a radical step. They proposed that while parity was conserved in gravity and electromagnetism, it might be violated in the weak nuclear force, the force responsible for beta decay. It was a bold, almost heretical idea, but it was just a theory. It lacked the one thing that matters most in science: experimental proof. They knew there was only one person in the world with the skill, precision, and tenacity to design and execute an experiment to test their hypothesis. They went to Chien-Shiung Wu. Wu immediately recognized the profound importance of the question. She dropped everything, even canceling a long-planned trip to China with her husband, to pursue the experiment. The concept was elegant, but the execution was immensely difficult. She proposed cooling a radioactive isotope, cobalt-60, to near absolute zero, just a fraction of a degree above -273 Celsius. This extreme cold was necessary to minimize the thermal vibrations of the atoms. Then, she would use a powerful magnetic field to align the spin of all the cobalt-60 nuclei in the same direction. Once aligned, she would observe the beta decay, carefully measuring the direction in which the electrons were emitted. If parity was conserved, the electrons should fly off in all directions equally. There would be no preferred direction. The universe would not have a left or a right. But if Li and Yang were correct and the weak force violated parity, the electrons would preferentially be emitted in one direction relative to the spin of the nuclei. To achieve the required cryogenic temperatures, Wu collaborated with a team at the National Bureau of Standards in Washington, D.C. The experiment was a race against time and a masterpiece of precision. In late 1956, after months of painstaking work, they had their setup ready. As the cobalt-60 decayed, the detectors began to click. The results were immediate and unambiguous. The vast majority of electrons were emitted in the direction opposite to the nuclear spin. The mirror image of the experiment was not occurring. The universe at the subatomic level was not ambidextrous. It was, in a sense, left-handed. Parity was not conserved. It was a bombshell discovery, a result so shocking that the team repeated the experiment over and over to be certain. But the data was undeniable. Wu had single-handedly, through sheer experimental genius, toppled one of the central pillars of physics. The news spread through the physics community like a shockwave. Wolfgang Pauli, one of the giants of the field, famously wagered a very large sum that the experiment would fail. Upon hearing the results, he wrote to a colleague, "I do not believe that the Lord is a weak left-hander. I am ready to bet a very high sum that the experiment will give a symmetric result." When he was proven wrong, he wrote back, "That is very interesting. It is good we did not bet." In 1957, less than a year after Wu's definitive experiment, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded for this monumental discovery. But it was awarded to Cheng-Dao Li and Chien-Shiung Yang, the theorists. Chien-Shiung Wu, the woman whose experiment had turned their speculation into fact, was left out. The decision was, and remains, one of the most controversial snubs in Nobel history. Why was she excluded? There was a clear bias towards theorists who were often seen as the true creators of ideas, while experimentalists were sometimes viewed as mere technicians. But it's impossible to ignore the role of gender. In 1957, the world of physics was an exclusive men's club. Wu herself was quiet but clear about her feelings, later stating, "I wonder whether the tiny atoms and nuclei, or the mathematical symbols, or the DNA molecules have any preference for either masculine or feminine treatment." Her husband was more blunt, calling the decision the gravest injustice in the history of the prize. Without Wu's experiment, Li and Yang's theory would have remained a curious footnote. She provided the proof, the linchpin that held the entire discovery. She had done the impossible, and for it, she was overlooked. Despite this profound injustice, Chien-Shiung Wu's career continued to flourish. She became the first female president of the American Physical Society and received countless other prestigious awards, including the inaugural Wolf Prize in Physics, often considered second only to the Nobel. Her story is a powerful reminder of the barriers women have faced in science, but also a testament to the power of courage, dedication, and an unwavering pursuit of truth. She was the courageous hero her father had named her to be. Her legacy is not just in the laws of physics she helped rewrite, but in the doors she broke down for future generations of scientists, regardless of their gender or background. If you found the story of this forgotten genius as compelling as we do, please show your support by hitting that like button, sharing this video to help spread her incredible legacy, and subscribing to our channel for more untold stories from the world of science. What do you think about the 1957 Nobel decision? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.